You're on?
Back here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Calling to order the meeting of the SAU Governing Board, the compilation of all three district boards. We have 9 in attendance, so we do have a quorum. I think people like to have introductions, so we will start. I'll start on this end.
Linda Sherwood,
'Cause you're
Director of Business
awake.
Operations. Oh, no, sorry. You said wait?
good.
I said, so you're, because you're awake.
Oh, I'm awake, okay.
Holly Drolla Babcock, Co-op Board.
Krista Whalen, Co-op Board.
Kate Stoll, Co-op Board.
Gina Barksog, Assistant Superintendent.
Andy Corey, Superintendent.
Tom Solon, Co-op School Board.
Carol Roy, Hollis School Board.
Ken Higgs, Brookline School Board.
Allison Mannion, Brookline School Board.
Ann Wake DePasquale, Hollis School Board.
Tammy Fareed, Hollis School Board.
Thank you very much. First order of business, although it's not on this agenda.
Yeah, it's here
I
in the,
know, is we're going to appoint a process observer. Anyone feeling observant? I know I'm not. Thanks,
So
Holly.
you took my agenda, so I'm going to just need to scribble on them.
I can give it back to you.
No,
once
it's
we
all
get-
right, I'm fine, I have a notebook.
Second order of business is we would like to go into non-public session.
I think we're doing agenda adjustments first.
Oh, we are?
On the outline, it has them.
Okay.
You want to move the,
I didn't know if we do it after we came out or before.
you can do
Okay,
it. Doug.
okay. I would like to propose an agenda adjustment to have the deliberation regarding the superintendent-elect contract proposal immediately after the non-public session. 2 reasons for that. One is that it will be fresh in our minds and we'll be able to gain closure. The other is there may be some people in attendance who need to leave early but want to participate in that activity. Does anyone have any objections to that? Does anyone have any other recommendations for agenda adjustments? Okay, so we will make that that agenda adjustment. So we intend to go into non-public session at this time, and when we come out, we will immediately follow that with deliberation on the contract proposal. Can I have a motion to go to enter non-public under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, Section A, compensation and/or reputation?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Carol, seconded by Krista. We need to Okay, great, thank you. We are back out of non-public, though we're back in the public. What a scary thought. Did she draft it as a formal motion? In the outline?
I think so. Hold on. Gotta get to it.
I have it.
Thank you, Andy.
So will this come under nominations?
Good. That's the motion she put. She got it to accept the superintendent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she got it.
Oh, okay. So we're going to move into, actually, so we don't really need deliberations as such.
No, you're just going to make
Correct.
the motion
Yeah.
every second.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion. I don't know if this is to accept the superintendent's nomination. The superintendent, you're not nominating.
Superintendent-elect.
No, but I think there's a separate deliberation, isn't there?
It is in a separate deliberation section.
Okay.
Let me see.
We already accepted the nomination.
It's to accept the contract.
Yeah. Sorry,
That's okay.
There's a timer, so I could just leave.
I don't have the outline. I mean, I do. Yeah, and so we need
Do you
to
have it?
deliberation.
I'm trying to find it.
Motion to accept the contract for the,
I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a formal wording or something
The outline.
for it.
I'm in the outline, but I'm not finding it.
Okay, I would like
It's before the
to
policies.
receive a motion to approve the tentative agreement between the SAU
here.
governing board.
There it is.
2025 superintendent-elect contract proposal.
Okay, I don't,
Go ahead and read it. Sorry, we couldn't
Would you
find
make
it
that
on the thing.
motion?
Go ahead and read it out.
It does have it suggests an amount too. I don't know if you have that total there, so I don't think we need that.
okay,
I don't think we need to do the amount till it's
signed. I'd like a motion to approve the 2025 superintendent-elect contract proposal with...
As presented in non-public.
Well, with the retroactive to July 1st, 2023. And,
I don't think you need to make it retroactive
no,
because
but
the
I don't...
proposal outlines
Because we're
that.
not going to, retroactive to, it's a four-year, for 4 years. Continuing the current assistant superintendent salary and general contract conditions through till June 30th, 2025, and becoming active as a superintendent contract as of July 1st, 2025, continuing through June 30th, 2027.
Seven.
7.
So moved. 'Cause I'm not repeating.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Just for background, for anyone who's listening, the contract outlines the continuation by Assistant Superintendent Gina Bergskog in her current role as Assistant Superintendent for the balance of this school year and next school year, anticipating the retirement of the current superintendent, and then transitioning to the role of superintendent for 2 more years. The contract does allow, if for any reason Andy bails on us, it does allow for an early initiation of the transition.
Excellent.
And I'll add to it that we appreciate the process of getting there, particularly Superintendent Corey's willingness to both give us the time and the service to create a transition. All those in favor? It is unanimous. And just for the record, Sidney Van Conant, Co-op School Board member, did enter the meeting during the non-public session. So it's 10, well, it's 3-3-3, but there are 10 members present. And my congratulations and condolences.
We gotta pop back to the resignations, nominations.
Yeah. Do you have any communications, resignations, nominations?
I do not.
You do not. Okay, so we will not continue with them. At this point, we are a little bit behind on this timing, but we are going to recess for a public hearing on the 2025 SAU budget. Can I have a motion to recess?
So moved. I move that the board recess until the conclusion of the public hearing on the SAU 41 proposed FY25 budget.
I'll second.
Second by Holly. All those in favor? We are now recessed and the hearing is open at 6:44. Attendance?
Correct.
Who
Traveling.
is- Huh?
He's traveling, I'm presenting.
How convenient.
Which
Yeah.
is ironic.
I know. Yeah. It absolutely is.
We do have meeting minutes to approve as well.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay. Okay, for many of the board members, this is background information. For people at home, this will provide you some information regarding our SAU budget. We are made up of an SAU 41 budget subcommittee, which has representatives from the SAU, myself, Gina Bergskog, Kelly Seeley, and Linda Sherwood. The Brookline Board is represented by Allison Mannion, and from the Brookline Finance Committee, Cindy LaCroix. Cal Roy is from the Hollis School Board, and Mike Levitt is from the Hollis Budget Committee. And at the co-op, Sidney Van Conant is from the Co-op School Board, and Darlene Mann is from the Co-op Budget Committee. Governing Board Treasurer is Robert Mann. Rob was unexpectedly called out of town on business, so I will be presenting the budget tonight. Our agenda will go through the SAU budget as a percentage of the total. We'll talk about the different departments. We'll do some comparisons, identify the budget drivers, the major components, and then we'll break it down by category. Then we'll have a brief discussion about the unassigned fund balance, which we'll be using this year, and revenue, budget apportionment, and the warrant article itself, and then we'll take any questions and answers from the public. So the SAU 41% of the total budget, our budget at the SAU that we're proposing is $2,268,374, which is 3.8% of the total budget. And when we say the total, we're looking at all our districts combined for $59.5 million, of which $12,150,978 is allocated to Brookline, $16,791,835 is allocated to Hollis, and $28,251,867 is allocated to the co-op. You can see that we're pretty much slightly increasing in the last few years, and that's a direct result of the need for the services that are required from the SAU. We did want to touch upon the different departments. I'm not going to go through this in detail because the board has seen that, but we have the superintendent and assistant superintendent's office, and we have 3 full-time employees there. The business office is represented by 6 full-time employees. They do yeoman's work, processing 11,204 invoices last year, 3,137 purchase orders. They manage food service, state and federal reporting, all of those elements. Maintenance, that was And I think Lance is in his second year or third? Third. This is a position that we added 3 years ago. He is responsible for the 7 buildings, all the custodials, and does a lot with our safety and security. Human resources, we're at 3 people. Just to give you an example, we have 462 employees, 534 volunteers, 99 coaches, and 67 substitutes. Next year, Linda, we're going to have to do a little bigger font. Every year I get older, we need to increase the font size. And they are responsible for recruiting, onboarding, finding substitutes, and do the management of a time and attendance software. Student services encompasses all our students who are either on an IEP or a 504 across the SAU, and IT is responsible for all the technology at each of the buildings, and we have 5 staff members that fall under that department. When we look at the FY25 budget comparison, in FY24, we adopted a budget of $2,268,374. We're proposing a budget of $2,434,995, which is an increase of $166,621. That's the lowest increase of dollar amount across any of the budgets, but it's the largest percentage because our working number is the smallest. When we compare that, at the SAU, you have what's called an adjusted budget. The adjusted budget is if the voters were not to approve the budget we're requesting, the default number is the adjusted budget, which is set at $2,386,056. When you look at the difference between the adjusted and the proposed, we're looking at a 2% increase. The drivers, the 2 big things this year, salaries, it's a 3% increase, which we had pretty much planned on. The biggest unknown that came in and affected all our budgets across the SAU is the benefits, because health insurance, the maximum health insurance rate increase is 18.7, and the dental rate is 4.7. So that changed our benefits line significantly to $70,839, which was something that we were quite surprised by, and most districts across the state have been surprised by the significant increases. So the salaries and benefits increases account for 92% of that $166,000 that I just talked about. The components, we have 94% of our budget is salary and benefits because, again, we are pretty much an overarching organization providing support for the SAU in a variety of ways. The other $151,720, or 7%, is made up of a variety of different pieces from fuel costs to technology costs, professional development, and things of that nature. When we look at the categories, excuse me, we again see wages being the biggest number, with the change being $81,979, which is a 3% increase for SAU staff across the board. The benefits is $67,865. Operations and maintenance is pretty much almost level funded with an increase of $1,601. Contractual benefits, again, almost level funded with a difference of $1,326. Contracted services is an increase of $5,250. Professional development is an increase of $11,600, and that's primarily due to coursework that we have some individuals taking. That's what results in that increase. Expendables goes up $2,000 from $17,100 to $19,100, and equipment and software actually goes down because we had made technology purchases in prior years and don't need as much in the way of upgrades this year. So that went down for $5,000, and that gives you a display of exactly how you arrive at the $166,621.
Andy,
Yes,
I have a question.
sure.
Last cycle of this, we talked about adding in the wage pool, like the merit placeholder. Is that part of the 81,000 that's in here then, or 82, roughly 82K? Is some of that the projected merit pool?
The merit pool, you'll see in a later slide, how we use that as revenue to
Okay.
offset the increase. So if we could, we'll go through that, and then if your question is still
Okay,
not answered, I'd be happy to approach it again.
sounds good.
At the SAU, because it's a combination of 2 towns, 3 districts funding the SAU budget, we have what is called an unassigned fund balance. The money that we have in surplus doesn't go back to the taxpayers by law. So we have a FY24 beginning fund balance of $309,169. We're not projecting using that in FY24. We have an ending balance then of $309,169. We are proposing tonight to utilize $53,233 in the form of revenue, and we'll explain what that looks like shortly, which will give us an ending fund balance of $255,936. We have tried, by recommendations of the SAU Budget Committee and the various other budget committees, to maintain a balance between 7 and 10%. So again, our 255 will be slightly higher than that, but it's very difficult to utilize these funds because they need to be utilized for what I'll call one-time expenses. Otherwise, what you're doing is just delaying a tax increase that can seem like a double-edged sword. So the fund balance, what we're proposing to use it for is office equipment, which is such as scanners, filing cabinets, desks, and shelving for $2,000. Replacement computers, following the schedule based on aging inventory, for $4,000. The Director of Student Services, the professional development for the coursework, for $4,200. The annual required membership dues for the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and business administrator. This is just partial funding of our dues for $8,000. And then we would be using the merit pool to reduce the overall increase to the budget by $35,033. So we'd be taking revenue from the fund balance. The money that comes out of the fund balance would be applied as revenue, and that would be for $53,233 to reduce. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. We also get indirect cost through our grants. We receive a number of grants through the state, and we're allowed to take some of those as indirect costs via revenue to offset the work that in time committed to those grants. So in this slide, we show that we're adding the $4,000 of revenue from the indirect cost. So our total revenue that you'll see offset will be $57,233. The budget apportionment, and this is the distribution of funds to be raised by districts. So we show you the 23-24, where we had just the $4,000 of revenue because we didn't use the unassigned fund balance. Then we show you 24-25, where we're showing you the revenue of $57,233, which is deducted from the operating budget to give us a budget of $2,377,762. When we look at the adjusted budget, that's the number that if the voters do not approve our requested amount, we would see the revenue be reduced because of the requirements under the adjusted budget in the law by $29,233, so that would be $2,356,823. When we look further, we look at the 23-24 versus the 24-25 distribution of our budget to the 3 budgets. So Brookline pays approximately 20% of the SAU budget. Hollis pays 31%, and the co-op pays 49%. Obviously, co-op for taxpayers' purposes is split between Hollis and Brookline again. When we say that Brookline is 20%, we're talking about just the K-6 district, the same for Hollis. So we are looking at $473,655 for Brookline share, $734,279 for the Hollis share, and $1,169,828 for the co-op share, and you have those comparisons from year to year. So that gets us to our actual warrant. This would be the warrant that you'd be approving based on the recommendation of the SAU Budget Subcommittee. Shall the voters of either Hollis, Brookline, or the Cooperative School District adopt a school administrative unit budget of $2,377,762 for the forthcoming fiscal year in which, and then the assigned amount that we just discussed will be inserted there to the school budget of this school district. This year's adjusted budget of $2,356,823, with, again, the appropriate apportionment assigned to the school budget of this school district, will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in the school administrative unit. And then we have the standard, the budget committee does or does not recommend this appropriation, and the school board does or does not recommend this appropriation. That will occur at each of the boards. So this article appears to each board makes their own recommendation to their voters. And again, this article is either adopted or fails after we get the total count, which occurs after the last annual meeting of that year. And I think that takes us to questions, right? This is typically when we have questions from the public, and then we have another scheduled time for the school board to ask questions about the budget as well. So I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Before we close the hearing, I just want to add a couple of comments. We have had questions in the past about the use of the is it unassigned?
Unassigned fund balance.
Is that what we call it
Yeah,
here?
unassigned.
Unassigned fund balance for paying of bonuses. One of the things that this board tries to do is to use that funding source for items that are for the current year only, so that it doesn't have an effect of creating a false basis for a following year's budget. And although in most years we do tend to award some type of bonuses, they are not contractual in that they're carry from year to year, so they are an appropriate element. In addition, that fund balance, to a large extent, is often created by the absence of filled positions, or the lack of filling positions within the SAU office. And as a result of people being required to cover work that is not truly part of their job description or job function, they are in fact performing other people's jobs, and it seems appropriate to use the funding that would have paid those other people to help provide at least some level of compensation for the additional work being done. So it seems like a logical path to use those funds in that manner. The other thing I do want to highlight is something that Superintendent Corey noted, but I think it's important that people really consider it, is when you look at the percentage of the total budget for running 3 districts and the SAU that is covered by just this SAU budget at the 4% level, it really drives home the fact that the work that's done in the SAU is probably some of the most efficient as well as important work that can be done throughout, because it translates across all 3 districts. So a dollar spent in the SAU has a multiplier effect. It has leverage. We've seen that in facilities. We've seen that in special education. We have seen that in overall administrative management. It's not the place to cut corners because of the far-reaching effect. We are at a bit of a disadvantage compared to some other SAUs because of the fact that we have 3 districts, 4 boards, and all the resultant duplication of work that must be done. So I think it's important that people keep the task in mind when they're looking at it and look at the numbers. Don't get overly worked up at percentages, because a percentage of a small number is very different than that same percentage of a much larger amount. Thank you. Does anyone else have any further information that is part of this presentation of the public hearing? Since we really don't have any members of the public, I'm reluctant to ask for public input. Are we required at this to keep public input open for 30 minutes? Because this is in the school district.
Not
No,
on the
this-
hearing.
Not the hearing.
Okay. Okay. In that case, unless there's any objections, I will close the public hearing at 7:04. And we now will resume our regularly scheduled meeting.
Mhm.
Carol was kind enough to point out that the agenda does not include approval of minutes.
Oh, okay.
But it was in the outline.
Thought it was, this is as good a time as any to
Yep.
do that. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval. We have public and non-public from October 12th, as well as the public, what was the public
We have
hearing on?
4.
So the unassigned fund balance, so we actually have 3 sets of minutes. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve the public minutes with the following, I believe these are published. The first one published?
It is.
Yeah, with the following
Do you-
amendment. Page 7, line 15, to correct the spelling of board. Member.
I move to approve as amended the minutes for the SAU 41 Governing Board on October 12th, 2023.
Second.
And members Babcock, Fareed, Mannion, and Stoll were not present for that meeting, so. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Any further requests for amendments? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You abstain? You do, I don't.
Oh, I thought I saw your name here, but.
Okay, any opposed
He didn't say
and
my name.
abstentions?
Put you in here. 1, 2, 3 abstentions.
Okay,
Okay.
so unanimously approved.
That's absent from tonight's meeting, because he wasn't expected.
I'm here.
I move to approve the SAU 41 Governing Board non-public minutes from October 12th, 2023.
Second.
Approved and seconded, motion and seconded. Is there any discussion or amendments offered? For this one, why is there a bunch of people
There's a
took off?
4th one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there were,
So Babcock, Fareed.
no, yeah, Babcock, Fareed, Mannion, and Stoll.
Mannion and Stoll were not present for that.
Correct.
All those in favor? Okay. Opposed?
No, I'm not opposed, sorry. I'm abstaining.
And abstentions?
Four.
Great, thank you. And then we have the
Public hearing minutes.
non-public hearing.
We have
Excuse
public
the
hearing ones too,
hearing.
yep, and then another one. So I move that we accept with amendments the SAU 41 Governing Board public hearing on the unassigned fund balance minutes from October 12, 2023. The following amendments: page 1, line 42, replace the "on" with "on the."
Second.
Any further suggestions of amendments or discussion?
And this is the same, it was the same day, so same
Yeah.
abstention.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
And we have one final one. I move to accept the SAU 41 Governing Board non-public minutes from June 13th, 2023 as presented. Members Fareed and Williams would need to abstain.
Second.
I have no recollection of that.
I can tell you what it was
No,
after, offline.
I did read them when they were out there. So I read them as well. Any amendments or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Okay.
One.
So it's 9-1. Thank you very much.
Yes, Tammy is acting as secretary for the meeting, I think, right?
Am I?
In the non-public sheet.
Just
Was,
for the-
okay.
the
Non-public,
non-public.
but Dawn will be covering the
Just making sure.
meeting. I'm
I haven't been recording.
You're
so I
good.
assume Dawn was fine.
You're
Right.
totally fine.
Okay. So now we enter the discussion phase.
Public input officially,
No,
like the
that-
meetings, public input.
Oh, that wasn't public input for the hearing? Oh, okay, I got it. Okay. We will now begin public input at 7:09. And we will keep public input open for 30 minutes. Seeing how there is no one here currently offering public input, we will continue with the meeting, but should someone arrive in the next 30 minutes, we shall either break to have them speak or at the first opportunity do so. Okay, now we can move on to discussion. Is that okay?
That's all right, thank you.
Very much. Been there, done that. First order of business is board discussion of the SAU budget. Is there any discussion of the topics, how it's presented? And this is basically the time, if you want to consider something being different other than what was proposed, that it be brought forth.
I just simply have a quick question. In the PowerPoint that was presented during the public hearing, it, in the pie chart slide, it's slide number 4, talking about the, no, that's not the right one. It's the pie chart slide of the budget component, slide number 8. It added benefits and salaries together for 94%, but it said other was 7%. That's 101%. So is it 6? Is it a 0.5 somewhere?
It's rounding.
Okay.
It's all formula driven.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
Rounding.
Figured
And
I would
did wanna,
ask.
Answer, Ken, the answer is yes. Merit is included in the wages on the slide you were asking
It
about.
is.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, last year, that I was gonna follow up with, so thank you. That, and then we had talked about, for the one-time use too, having some external people come in to help with looking at process for efficiencies and transactional type things. Did we do any of that last year, or is there any thought to having a third party to come? I mean, I just looked at all of your transaction data, which was really interesting. And I just wonder with 4 districts if there's any kind of external efficiencies that could be gained by an outside party that could help with some of that with our consulting fees.
We have brought them in the past. I think it was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
It was a municipal agency who comes in and just kind of meets with all of us, talks about everything we do, and then comes back with a report for efficiencies.
Yep.
And we've kind of followed that, but I think your suggestion, it's probably been 3 or 4 years that I think about it. But if we were to move forward with that, I think we'd do that for the fall.
Okay.
And I would just suggest at that point, when our opening meeting would be to allocate money out of the unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
As long as there's a motion, a second, and approval, there's no issue from a
Okay.
funding formula.
In the fall of this coming year then?
Correct.
All right, so I don't think I'm going to be here anymore, so I'm going to throw out to the group that I think that would be well-served, just to have those potential opportunities, just to keep kicking the tires, see if there's other software, anything like that that could help still support that in the future.
And I think it's a great suggestion, because out of that came, like, the facilities director, things
Yeah.
like, a
Yeah.
number of different things that have allowed us to streamline things.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? The number of employees listed in it, is that full-time employees, full-time equivalent employees? Is it actual bodies?
It's actual bodies.
Okay.
Because if you look in student services, 2.84, because that person, one of the people is only .84, but it's still 17 bodies.
I just got that, in the math, it's 3.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the IT person, it says they direct 5 tech staff. Are those folks who are allocated to the districts and they're just in charge of them?
Correct.
Just to
They're at
clarify.
the building level, yep.
Perfect, thank you.
I think Ann had a question.
So being new to this, first of all, thank you for this slide. It makes things really clear and easy to follow. When you talk about the adjusted budget, if the voters don't approve, I guess this is mostly for my information.
Yep.
This is twofold. How do you determine the adjusted budget if it's not fulfilled? And then say we have to do that, say they don't approve it, what gets cut?
The adjusted budget takes out one-time expenses. So anything new, anything that's non-contractual, things of that nature. It's very similar to the default budget in the Brookline School District if you're SB2, but because we're an SAU, it's called an adjusted budget. And I think in the bottom left, is that what the definition? Yeah, so in the bottom left corner, that's the definition that we have to follow for the adjusted budget. So
Okay.
if it was,
Thank you.
the adjusted was approved, I would say that many of the things you see us using from the unreserved fund balance would potentially be cut. But we would have to come back to the board and kind of outline that for them to get to that number of $2,386,056.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one thing about
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Well, one of the significant things that would happen if the adjusted budget is the one voted on is our support staff would not be receiving increases. So when we talk about the 3% increases for all staff, contractually administrators get 3%, 2 to 4% based on CPI. Support staff are not on contracts, they're on annual notices. So I think that's a significant problem because we have 5 or 6 support staff who do a tremendously large amount of work, and it would be unfortunate if they were not able to get any kind of increase.
Well, just to clarify, we're permitted to pay those, but would have to take the money elsewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Probably
Right.
from the other line, I would imagine, the 150K, so no, whatever else we use 7% for, right? I assume that's-
Right. I would say what would happen if the $2,386,056 was approved, Gina, Kelly, Linda, and I would sit down again and tell you exactly what we're going to do, because right now in this economy, if we told hourly people they weren't going to get any raise, I think all of them could easily find a job elsewhere. So we would take that raise, reduce in other line items, but again, we'd have to come back to you, but we would have to stay within the $2,386,056.
Tammy?
Could we go back to the slide describing the SAUs? Yeah, that. 10 years after pleading for this, we finally have it.
Can you use a
And I hope-
microphone?
So I really
Please.
hope, 10 years after I first started begging for this, it's finally appeared, and I hope any future superintendents after Mr. Corey retires will make it less of an eye chart and expand on it, because the SAU staff deserves even more acknowledgement than this. But thank
And
you
just,
for-
just so the people at home know, 10 years ago when I arrived, we had 14 staff members. 10 years later, we have 17.
Right.
So we have not been overextending. And I also want to just clarify, there was a big story in the Union Leader about enrollment going down across the state. That's not happening in our district, as the Hollis board members and the Brookline board members will tell you. And they're on the way to the co-op. And shortly, we'll be back to where we were 10 years ago, where the high school was bursting at the seams. So I don't want people to confuse what's happening across the state with our two communities. And I think, like similar districts to us, are seeing enrollment growth because people are choosing those communities for the school systems.
Thank you.
Ann, did you have
If I
another
can ask-
question?
Yep, again, this is just kind of for my information. So if we're going to the slide as far as like where categories, it looks like it's slide 9. things, for example, where it says contractual, contracted services, does that include like when we consult with legal? Like because that's something that I know, I personally have not seen, it might be there. There's just so much to absorb with budgets. Where does something like that fall under when we need to consult with legal, or there are legal fees, et cetera?
Well, in the SAU, there's not a lot of legal fees. Okay, like I'll give you an example where there would have been. When Tom would have consulted with the attorney to create the new contract for the superintendent-elect.
Yes.
But most of the time, legal issues are at the district level, even though we work on it, so it's only in their budget. So our contracted services, a lot of times, will be assistance with maybe some questions around special ed, things of that nature, maybe some IT consulting, people that assist us with our E-rate funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My only last question is, so we talked about merit, and I use the different terms. Are we, as a board, considering to do bonuses on an annual basis? And I guess if so, I would propose we consider adding a line so that there's something in the budget every year as opposed to using the one-time.
There is money in the budget for, I'll call it baseline assumptions for bonuses.
Okay.
So is it 35,000 this year?
15,000.
We did put that in. Okay.
I thought-
Yeah, it's on the last
No,
page.
I don't mean the
It's on-
current year, I mean
Oh.
the proposed year, isn't it been bumped up? to-
35, based on
Yeah.
history.
Yeah, it's
Based
been
on what we
bumped up to
okay.
35.
So we did do that now. Maybe I'm.
Ken, I'll explain. So it's on the very last page of the
But that's
line
the
item
unused
budget.
fund
But to
balance.
explain the thinking of the committee, FY '25 will be the last year of certain salaries in certain positions.
Okay.
And then FY '26, you'll see a decrease in salaries in two of your positions when I transition to superintendent. So the thought was, yes, we really want to use one-time expenses. However, that wouldn't create, by utilizing the fund, since we were over that 7 to 10%, by utilizing it for this one FY '25, we're not going to see that artificial inflation the year after, given that our baseline salaries
Okay.
see a decrease.
So that's the thought long-term, though.
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay. I guess it's time to move on to the FY '24 revenue and expense report.
Turn it over to Linda.
As if you haven't heard enough numbers, let me add a few more, just for Holly. Okay, so we're about halfway through the year, and this is a projection of where we think, at this point, we could end up. We have a $2.268 million budget, and right now we're showing that we might spend a little more than that this year. So the areas where we're showing a little bit of an increase of expenses over budget are in the superintendent line. There was an increase to the superintendent's salary. After the budget was created, the board gave him an extra addition to his salary. In the student services line, the director of student services is taking a 3-year course, which is actually, you saw that in the FY '25 budget. And we also had to have some additional administrator contract work in student services. And then in the third category, it's the business office. We had to hire a temporary person for 3 months while someone was out on leave. The area where we're seeing a decrease in expenses from our budget is in benefits, and that's due to the rate change from New Hampshire retirement system. Our business administrator was able to drop from one category to another category, dropping her from 19.64% retirement to a 13.53% increase, which was a $9,200 savings to our budget. So the total in expenses is that out of the $2.2 million budget, we, at this point, are saying we might spend $17,000 more than that. But then if you look down at the revenue section, we have a little bit of a increase in the miscellaneous line, which actually is just bank interest. Our interest rates, as you know, we're getting a lot more bank interest than in previous years. So that number will probably go up, actually, as the year goes on. And the bottom line then to our budget balance would be if you take the negative $17,000 in expenses and add the $3,400 in revenue surplus, gives us a budget balance of negative $13,000. However, if you put that into our fund balance, our beginning fund balance right now this year is $309,169. And if we subtract out the $13,000 loss, I guess we would call it, add back in $8,900, which is money we had anticipated to spend from FY23 budget that we're not spending, gives us an ending fund balance end of this year of $304,506, which is 13.4% of our adopted budget, and our target range is 7 to 10%. So even with the slight loss in the expense side projection, we would still have a fund balance higher than our target. So I tried to do that quickly. So, are there any questions?
I think we're good.
Thanks,
Thank you
Linda.
for all your hard work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Sorry
you.
if I spoke too fast. I was just trying to get through
sense.
it.
You're
Clear.
good. You're good.
Okay.
Candy? We have a candy request.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Time to move into deliberations. First up on the list is the see what action the board will take regarding the proposed FY25 budget that you have just seen presented so thoroughly. Just to start out with a motion. Guess the question is.
Which one?
Yeah.
Do we need all of
I would tend to start out with approving the budget.
them? I agree.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the FY25 budget in the total amount, this is that, it's on the warrant article.
I can get it.
In the total amount of $2,377,762.
We
Is
don't
that the right
have to-
number?
It's going from the warrant.
We don't have to do the unassigned fund balance first?
Pardon me?
Well, in the outline, she has us doing the unassigned fund
I know,
balance
but
first.
I'm not sure why that order. I'd start with
Okay.
approving the budget. and then-
Correct.
Because if you don't approve the budget, then the question becomes what are the right numbers for the other stuff?
Okay.
No, I have the budget first.
Yeah, I do too.
No, we're talking about in the outline.
Yeah, I'm
in
looking
the
at the
outline.
outline.
on
It's got the
line.
budget first, under the
Yeah.
deliberation section.
And mine
The
said-
motions that are
Well,
under
it's to
deliberations on the one
amend
she
it.
sent out says to amend the proposed budget by. That's why
Yeah.
we were confused with the
Oh.
order.
Yeah.
It does say amend.
The
Yeah,
third
we don't
one is to
accept it
approve
until the third one.
Right.
Oh, that's weird.
So that if someone
That's
wants
my
to
confusion.
amend
Oh,
it,
yeah.
now is the time
Listen,
to
I'm on
amend
5 hours of
it.
sleep. Done.
Right.
So
That
I'm
works.
I was
Got
just,
you,
it
so
was
For a
that's
motion
just
to
there in
approve it.
case.
as it was presented,
Okay.
but
that's
if
weird.
someone doesn't want that but wants a different number,
I
now's the
think she
time to
has the
propose
motion
an
to
amendment.
amend it first, in case someone wanted to amend it.
Correct.
But you can't
Before.
amend it until it's been,
You can
But if you
amend it for
wanted to make an
consideration.
amendment to
Without a
this-
motion, you can't make an amendment. Is the motion on the floor?
no.
No.
I so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
So motion made by Tammy, seconded by Carol. So now we have a motion to approve the budget that was presented. Is there any discussion?
Or amendment. Or amendment.
Well, I want to find out if there's some discussion, because I'd like to hear discussion before an amendment, ideally.
Excuse me, what's the number that you're approving?
2377762.
It should be the gross budget, because the number you're talking about is when revenue is applied, and
Right.
that's only relevant for the district.
Right.
2268, is that the number?
2377762.
No,
No.
sorry,
Oh, goodness gracious.
2434995.
that one.
Yeah.
2,34995.
Yes.
I looked at 24.
an amendment.
Do you
We
want
sure
to,
did.
do you want to amend your amendment?
I would suggest withdrawing the motion.
Yep.
Withdraw the motion.
Second.
Okay, would you like to make a new motion with a dollar amount?
I would
2
like you
million?
to state the correct motion, and I will so move it.
Would you like me to just motion it?
However you feel so moved.
I move to approve the FY25 budget in the total amount of $2,434,995 as presented.
Second.
So motion by Carol, second by Tammy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Now, do we need to do the allocate the
53 to-
53?
Yes, okay, that's the revenue.
I move to allocate the sum of $53,233 from the unassigned fund balance to be used as a revenue item in the FY25 budget.
Second.
Who seconded?
Allison.
So, motion by Carol, second by Allison. Any discussion? Everyone understand what we're doing? All those in favor? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Okay, who's running the policy stuff?
I'm happy to do so.
Gina and I.
I will now turn over the conversation policies to Carol.
I would like to just start off by thanking Amy Kellner for her years of service to the SAU Policy Committee for going through every single policy that the SAU has and making sure that they're up to date. So it's great work. Thank you. Yeah,
I'm sure she's watching.
I'm sure she is.
Hi, Amy. So this first one is to see what action the board will take regarding policy ECAF, audio and video surveillance on buses. It had its first, second, and third reading. It was amended at our October 12th, 2023 meeting, and this is given its fourth meeting. The notes that we took in the last several meetings, there were some clarification asked for in October about, can we just say recordings rather than calling out specific video and audio? And we got some clarification on that, that while we do not have audio recordings on the school buses at this time, that could potentially go forward. And because audio recordings and video recordings are actually treated differently by RSA, they have to be treated differently within the words of the policy. So we do have to keep them both mentioned. Gina, did you have anything else that we wanted to mention specifically on this policy?
Nope, just that the only change that we added was the change to the retention language, a change to who can review, which we added others at the discretion of the superintendent, and we identified the policy as optional.
What does policy is optional mean?
So at the top of our policies, we
Yeah.
typically say optional or required by law.
Oh,
This didn't have
This
it.
is optional, meaning we
It's an
just-
optional
okay,
policy,
got
so we
it.
just-
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, you know what, I should have made the motion before we talked about it, my bad. So I move to accept the fourth reading and adopt policy ECAF, audio and video surveillance on buses as presented with amendments.
Second that?
Thank you, sir.
Will this require anything that we don't currently do?
No.
No,
I didn't know if you're bidding, you know?
No, I'm just tapping my hands. I'm waiting to
Any
vote
questions?
yes.
It's exciting stuff.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Hooray.
Unanimous, thanks. Okay, the next one is what? CB.
I move to accept the third reading and adopt policy CB, school superintendent.
Second.
So the only thing we added here was the appendix, a reference to the appendix CBR. So no change. I'm okay with it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
Motion adopted. Policy adopted. I move to accept the third reading and adopt CB-R, duties of the superintendent. You're
Second.
welcome.
I'm not just laughing at what happens in our board every time discussion comes up.
Do you have a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay.
Anything new, anything?
Nothing new, and this is straight from the administrative rules, so.
I didn't know if there were any new references or anything.
No.
I don't see any references first.
Children.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
And our final, adopted. And our final is, I move to accept the third reading and adopt policy BDB, board officers.
Second.
No changes were made to this policy, so it's the same as we viewed in October.
Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. At the end of it. Close public input. Pardon me? Close public input. We do. We close public input late, better late than never. And we will look for a report out by our process observer.
It was a very well-run meeting, quite efficient. We started at
Thank you,
6:08. What did you say?
He
Thank you,
thanked me.
It was a great team effort, and we got through the budget very concisely, and lots of great questions, and made great progress in transitioning to our new superintendent, so I feel really great about it, and it's 7:35.
Superintendent-elect, I gotta be careful. It
Superintendent-elect.
doesn't feel too bad.
No, it's good. We were anticipating an 8:20 adjournment, and we're probably going to adjourn in a couple of seconds, right? So it's 7:36, so
Unless somebody
all is
has-
well in the SAU governing board tonight. Thank you very much, Tom.
Any other business? One more motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
You sure?
Happy
Happy holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
How do you just hit the power button to turn these things off?
Is it only open?
And it just stays